Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Quimper Geological Society event. Thank you so much for being here. It's awesome to have all of you joining us on what is, at least in Port Townsend, a beautiful sunny day. I'm really excited for the presentation that we have for you all, and so I think you made the right choice in showing up to be at your computer screen right now. My name is Rebekah Korenowsky, and I am the Education and Engagement Manager at Jefferson Land Trust. And I have been helping out with the Quimper Geological Society events since COVID started and we switched to online. So I'm here at the top to give you the usual spiel if you've been coming to these before on the tech tips. So first up to know is that for the majority of the presentation, we will be keeping our audience mics off and allowing our presenters and speakers to have the floor. But if you'd like to turn your video on, if you are in the audience, you can do so in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, regardless of the device that you're on. And there's a camcorder icon there that you can start or stop your video. And it's nice if you can turn it on to give our presenter Trevor an opportunity to see people following along with his presentation. If you are experiencing any kind of lag or issues with your feed coming in, though, I would recommend turning your video back off so that you're not using as much bandwidth there. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Welcome. So the other thing I'll note is that we do have an opportunity to chat with each other in the chat function. So if you are on a computer, it's likely an icon that looks like a speech bubble in the bottom center-ish of your screen where you can say hello. And if you are on a device, you might have to tap and go to maybe the more button with the 3 dots. And there you can chat with everyone and share questions. And we have Carol here who will be compiling those and sharing them with Trevor at the end. Additionally, if you find me in the chat and you have questions, troubleshooting stuff, feel free to send those things my way. We will be recording this presentation, so when you have an incredible time and you want to share it with every person that you know, there will be a link to this on the Quimper Geological Society site where you can watch it again and share it with your friends. And a new feature that Zoom has added in recently is closed captioning, and I'm hoping that you all see this as well. And so it's again on the bottom of your screen in that black tray. And there's an option, it's an icon that has 2 C's for live transcription. And so if you'd like to turn that on, you can put that on and follow along. The translation will be a little bit funny, especially with some of the geological terms. So use it with that in mind, but that's there in case anyone needs it. Additionally, we are hoping to end the presentation around 5 o'clock, at which point we will have a Q&A with Trevor. So again, send your questions into the chat or hold them till the end if you can bear it, and then we will have an opportunity for those to get to Trevor. So now I want to start by asking you all a couple of questions. So I've just loaded up a a poll on your screen, and you can tap on, there are three questions this time. You can either tap or click on your answer, and then scroll down to the bottom and click submit. And this will give us a chance to see where you're from, what your geologic background is, and what your connection to sculpting is, since we have a special focus for today's presentation. And if the poll isn't showing up on your screen, or you have answers other than what are there, feel free to send in more details into the chat. We'd love to hear from you. So I can see the results are coming in. We're 70-ish%, so I'll give you another couple seconds there to get your answers in. Awesome. And I guess I will point out, I am broadcasting here from Port Townsend, and I have an undergraduate degree in geology, and I don't sculpt at all. So I'm looking forward to this. Okay, I'm going to stop the poll and share the results with you all. And interestingly, more folks from Washington outside of Jefferson County than anywhere else today. So Trevor, I think you're having an influence on our audience. Geologic background also, I'm guessing these are your folks, Trevor. And everyone appreciates sculptures. Well, a lot of folks do anyway. And yeah, a few folks from the NWSSA, so cool. Yeah, thank you all for participating. And again, feel free to add anything else you want to share into the chat. So with all that, I'm going to pass the mic on over to Michael Machette, President of Quimper Geological Society. Hey, Michael.
Hi, thanks, Rebekah. I'm not the president. I like to call myself the ringleader.
Sorry, yes, ringleader.
We don't have officers. We don't have dues. We're just playing it easy. So thanks for coming today. It's a beautiful day in Port Townsend. It's going to be a really nice week. A couple things about what's coming up on Saturday, May 22nd, about 6 weeks from now. Jennifer Pierce from the Department of Geology at Boise State University will present a Zoom lecture on wildfires, climate, and erosion in the past, present, and future. She's a PhD in geology. She's worked in fire science since she got out of University of New Mexico. I first met Jennifer when she was a teenager in Golden, Colorado. I worked with her dad. She's a third-generation geologist, if you can believe that. Her father, Ken Pierce, has worked throughout the Yellowstone area his whole career. And his father, Ken Pierce's father, is William Pierce, who discovered the world's largest landslide, the Hart Mountain landslide in southwestern Wyoming. Jennifer's got a degree in fire science, and she'll speak specifically about forest fires and their history in the northern Rocky Mountains. Since she's speaking in May, it could well be our fire season here in Washington, so the subject may be quite timely. We also have 2 field trips on the books for the summer. They're postponed from last year. Hopefully COVID will go down, the restrictions will be lifted, and we'll be able to have a field trip. You can see those on our website. One is a trip to the Cascades with Jeff Tepper, and the other one is a tour of the Elwha River Dam removals with Ian Madden from Port Angeles. So I hope you can make those events. So without any further ado, we're going to have a new host today, one of our advisors for the Quimper Geological Society, Carol Cedar Tepper, who is right here with us. Carol, it's all yours.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending today's Quimper Geological Society presentation. As Michael mentioned, my name is Carol Cedar Tepper, and I'm one of the board members who solicits or invites speakers for your pleasure. It gives me great satisfaction to introduce our speaker today. He is a smart, safe, mild-mannered, likable kind of geologist. Trevor is a scientifically well-rounded geologist and can easily explain his profession to other scientists as well as the layperson. As Stuart Lowther used to allude to, this is the type of geologist that makes the world better. Trevor grew up outside of McMinnville, Oregon, in the shadow of a glacial erratic known as the Bellevue Rock. No doubt his upbringing in the farmlands of the Willamette River Valley has something to do with his curiosity for the earth forms around him and the rocks that he carves. Many folks do not know that Trevor uses both sides of his brain through art and science. When I think of Trevor, I think of him as a geologist, but as he explained to me that he took a geology class only by chance while working on his undergraduate degree at the University of Oregon. He had no idea you could actually get a job in geology, which is the same thing that a lot of parents that send their children to college to get a geology degree fear. So I'm glad that at least Trevor figured that one out on his own. In the late 1990s, while he was working as a pizza maker, he learned the Oregon Department of Transportation needed a geologist to survey landslides as a result of Pineapple Express storm events. After surveying for a while, he realized he needed a master's. Hi, Dee. He realized he needed a master's degree to get a permanent full-time job. So he obtained a master's degree in geophysics and used black box geophysics in search of water wells to get farms off surface water for irrigation. During his master's, he found time to take a sculpting class too. Trevor's geology and art linked both sides of his brain, and he demonstrated compassion for a friend who had passed away. He carved a rock hammer in his memory. Luckily for Washington, Trevor came to work for the Department of Ecology as a well drilling coordinator in the Northwest Regional Office. In 2006, he found his way to Washington Department of Natural Resources in the Seismic Hazards Unit with Tim Walsh. Trevor believes that he got that job because he could swing a sledgehammer for the seismic surveys. In 2016, he focused on landslide hazards within the forest practices arena, and today he still works with the Washington Geological Survey studying landslides and helping communities understand their risks due to landslides. Today's talk stems from Trevor being welcomed by a community of helpful and supportive artists, which was a different experience that he had in art classes. Trevor speaks lovingly about his carving family who inspire him. It is my great satisfaction to welcome Trevor Contreras to present Geology and the Art of Stone Carving. Welcome, Trevor.
Thank you. It's a real honor to be asked to come to the Quimper Geological Society and give a talk. So thank you for having me. Wow, and what a great intro. I'm really impressed with what Quimper puts together in your programming, and thank you all for helping me along, especially Rebekah and Carol. It's the people who pull the levers behind the curtain that make this show go on. So thank you so much for helping me make it go smoothly. So, with that, I guess I will share my screen and this, cross our fingers and hope that it all shows up. Rebekah, does it look like I'm sharing the right screen this time?
It looks awesome, Trevor.
Wonderful. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, so today I'll talk a little bit about geology and probably a lot about stone carving. I had the pleasure of running into this wild bunch of stone sculptors about 11 years ago, and really enjoyed our time together and kind of growing into this family of sculptors. And what really got me started was in 2009, I attended a Geosapien art show on Vashon Island. There, Greg Wessel, the county geologist, put together a gallery showing of geology-related art, and it was a really great show. And I'd never actually met Bill Laprade. I think I had heard of him a lot. He's a geologist that worked at Shannon and Wilson, and I heard he did some stone sculpting, but I'd never seen it. And it was this piece here, this I believe it was called Subduction, made of Texas limestone. It was this sphere that had these beautiful arcs cut into it to look kind of like subduction zones around the Earth. And the idea that you could make art that had geological themes that would get people thinking about the Earth and Earth history just floored me. I was really inspired by that. Bill was kind enough to say, you've got to meet up with these artists, these stone sculptors at the Northwest. The Northwest, now I'm butchering the name, Northwest Stone Sculptors Association. They have summer symposiums, and they typically have about 3 of them. Well, I started going to the week-long one that was north of Seattle, and now it's kind of moved over onto the Kitsap Peninsula by Port Orchard. And it's just a wonderful group of people. Um, we get together for a week together there and commune over stone. And it reminded me of when I first found geology. I bounced around the University of Oregon quite a bit, taking various classes, and I thought I wanted to be an artist. But then I took an art class, and I didn't really mesh with the other kids. It seemed like we were all being kind of secretive and competitive in a weird way that I wasn't looking for, I guess. And then I found the geology department, and we go on field trips together, and we're all these rock nerds who just oozed enthusiasm for Earth history and the Earth processes. And I felt like at that point I had found my tribe. Well, when I went to the Northwest Stone Sculptors Association symposium, I felt like I found my additional tribe, or a group that I just really come together with and spend time with, and we all geek out on stone and beautiful sculpture. And um, it's we have a lot of kinship there, and it's just wonderful. And me being a new sculptor, I feel like, I don't know the ropes, don't know stone that way, but I still feel like I can bring something to the group by helping out with the kind of mechanical needs on the field, and then also talking about geology and earth history and stone, and bringing that part to the group. And so it's just it makes me feel helpful in that way. And while I'm learning and being inspired by these artists who just can do amazing things with stone. This this group, we just share a lot of kind of the techniques and technology of how to do this stuff. At these symposiums, we have guest lecturers and artists, and throughout the day, they'll walk us through kind of how they're going about the process of doing their work, and we can ask questions. And it's a great hands-on learning environment that just floors me. Um, Here's a large piece of Dunnite that they've actually used a chainsaw with diamonds on it to make a bunch of cuts into it. Oh no, and my mouse is coming on and off. Oh, that's not going to be fun. Um, so you can see these big cuts. Well, they're putting these metal wedges in and beating them in there to break that edge off, to expose the more green, olivine rich stone instead of the weathered rind. Um, and we have got a lot of tool talks. I've always been kind of mechanically inclined and interested in things. And so seeing the process and the gadgets to help me do things is something I geek out on. So, a lot of us end up, using just like a chisel and a hammer. And I love hearing the tinking of stone being carved. Well, we do a lot of our work that way, but when we come to camp and you have access to a diamond studded chainsaw or somebody's ring saw, it opens up new dimensions to how you can work the stone. And so we do a lot of hands-on kind of tool talk and technique swap that I just really enjoy. Um, you all, being up in the Port Townsend area, may recognize Arliss Newcomb there. She's one of our members who's I think she was at Port Hadlock area, or kind of Chimacum area for years and years. I think she's down in Arizona now most of the time. But hopefully we'll see her again at the camp, hopefully this summer, if we're able to put it on. But here she's working with another sculptor to drill a hole in the bottom of her piece so that it can be set up right and put on a pin, so that it's stable and won't be knocked over. But it's this sort of, having one expert showing another person kind of how to do something, and it's really wonderful. And this group that's the thing. I feel like everybody's into sharing. There isn't the secretive, this is my technique sort of thing. And it's just floors me. I just love this group of people. So here you can see, this is that same piece of dunite that was being worked in the other pictures, but you can see a bunch of cuts being made in this and then chiseling them out. And that's kind of one of the processes we use. So um, a lot of what I do now, because I want to remove a lot of material sometimes, is use just it's a Makita angle grinder. And I've got a little cheap diamond blade on it. But a lot of those cuts you see in this piece have been cut using just basically an angle grinder with a diamond blade on it. When we get into some of the other bits of shaping the stone, we'll put a grinding wheel on the angle grinder and then go and grind. So this thing's been ground flat. You know, the artist, he's a fellow named Sinden Blackwood out of Australia. He's made this whole thing flat and rounded the sides, and is going through his process of making this beautiful Dunnite sculpture. But so using the grinding wheel, and then you'll step down just like you would if you're working wood, or you'd use like sand. They call it sandpaper of different grits. Well, if you've got really hard stone, you can use sandpaper, basically these sanding discs made of with diamonds in them, and they're at different grits. So I think I've got a 50 here and a 100 grit here, and we just put these on Velcro backers and put them on basically an angle grinder or a water polisher, and then you can start to shape your stone and polish it up that way, and it's a lot of fun. Let's see, some of the other stones, some of the harder stones, we can use a diamond paste on them and a wool burr and polish them up nicely that way. So some of the jade or dunite, we might use some of these little polishing compounds on. But that's kind of part of the process. A lot of the sculptors also just really enjoy, you know, not the machinery so much as just the human and the chisel. And that's there's something to that. It's something intangible that is just really peaceful and enjoyable about shaping a stone by hand that way, and then using another stone, maybe a carbide grinding wheel that's broke up, and use that to shape the sculpture. And so it's just wonderful that way. Kind of big picture, like how the stone in our neck of the woods came about. You know, really looking at North America here, and you know, these ribbons of different colors on this geologic map. They're all kind of similar rocks and terrains that have been slapped onto the continent through time and accreted. You can see areas where there's kind of stretch marks in the crust, where in the basin range you've got uplift and pulling apart. But you know, through these processes, the rocks in Washington and Oregon have been in place, and these processes have been going on for millions of years and continue to go on today. And it excites me to no end. So zoom in a little bit. You can see those stretch marks in the basin and range in Nevada and Utah, the Yellowstone hotspot track coming up into Yellowstone, and just these weird ribbons of might be old island continents that have been slapped on or faulted and moved up and down the coast for a very long time. So zooming in a little bit more and thinking about just our current situation with our subduction zone offshore, the San Andreas fault zone being one of these strike slip faults that kind of joins these mid-ocean spreading ridges and links them up. What we've got going on currently is subducting of the oceanic slab underneath North America as it moves over it. This is really kind of our plate tectonic regime, and what I like to think of is how these subduction zones change over time, and how basin and range extension can open basins and close them over time, and how we can accrete and deck that material onto the continent to build these, these ribbons of rock in the Northwest. So this is an image from Dave Tucker's, I think, Geology Underfoot series. But I like it because it reminds me of Japan, where you've got this island arc offshore, you've got the Sea of Japan in between, and you can then have multiple subduction zones with multiple arcs, and then through the magic of plate tectonics, you can shove this island arc closer to the other, abduct it or push it on shore, jump this other subduction zone maybe back behind, and then push this whole mountain range volcanics onto the continent. And with that, you might have kind of old ocean sediment, or you may push a piece of ophiolite or ocean floor up onto the continent through some of these kind of movements of the crust and these subduction zones jumping through time. So, and I think of Japan, the subduction zone, and then these inland seas here that may at some point break and start subducting under Asia, and you can basically slap island arcs onto continents through these mechanisms, and that's, I think, a lot of what we see in the Northwest with these accreted terrains. So here's a guilty party. There on the left is Pat Barton. You may have known him from the geology department at Central Washington University in the 70s. That's where he graduated from. He'd always been into rock hounding and lapidary work growing up as a kid, and has continued that on bigger scale with working with the sculptors. I think he spent 25 or 30 years driving piles around the Puget Sound for, I think, Manson Construction, and retired in 2007, and has really been inspiring the sculptors to get into the stone, and he's inspired me to get into the ultramafic rocks, these dunnites, and he's always coming up with, I think of it as like his mechanical side and his construction experience. He's always coming up with elegant, simple ways to polish our stones and work the stones in different ways that we haven't really seen in the community before. And he's always coming up with some cool, easy shortcut to help us get the right polish on our stones, or find them too. Being kind of a rock hound, he's really been instrumental in getting us up to Twin Sisters, and getting us access to Dunnite and the ultramafics that we see in the North Cascades that way. Some of you may recognize him from Issaquah salmon days. For years, he would make these cool planters, and I may still do it, where he'd core into a cobble of one of these local stones, probably coming out of the batholiths of Snoqualmie, or any of these rivers that are coming out of the Cascades there, and he'd make these cool planters and succulents and sell them there for years at a booth. And then I think he's gotten darker and more mafic in his years, and he's been really getting into, like, this is a piece of peridotite, and he's really encouraged us to get into working Dunnite. So here's Pat giving a safety talk at stone carving camp, telling us the do's and don'ts and how to stay safe, as well as different techniques, again, for polishing and working our stones. This is a piece that Carl Nelson made. He was our association's president for quite a while, but this really inspired me about how translucent Dunnite and olivine can be. And this stone is cool in that, or this piece is cool in that he kept the lip or the rind of the cobble that this came out of. So that's all the natural surface when it was a river cobble, and he removed everything else to the point where you can see through the olivine, and that's inspiring to me. So I've kind of tried to make a few sculptures where the light comes through the stone. So this Dunnite is basically olivine, pyroxenes, and chromite. You can see the chromite's the black stuff. This darker green is the pyroxenes, and then most of this stuff is olivine, and it's pretty unaltered. I guess I've got a piece here. This is the same piece, and what's cool is it just looks like a river cobble because I got it out of the middle fork of the Nooksack. Oh, it doesn't look like it likes my face being a rock. Oh well. But then you can carve it and shape it and keep that kind of weird rind on it and use that in the sculpture to kind of accent things. So as you get deeper into the stone, it's a greener, unaltered olivine, but olivine is not as stable as, say, quartz at the Earth's surface and rusts more readily. On the order of thousands of years, it may it may rust, but it's a wonderful stone to work. I like how it cuts like butter. It's just you'd think that it'd be pretty hard, kind of being associated with basalt and jade, but it actually works really nicely. We end up using some of the same techniques to polish it as you might with jade. Pat Barton encouraged us to use kind of I think it was Deborah Wilson's technique of using diamond placed lipstick and Vaseline mixtures that then you put on your diamond burr and polish the stone that way. It's kind of a technique they use for jade carving, but it works really well with the Dunnite. We also use some different diamond pads that seem to be doing a pretty good job of getting almost the finish we like on this stuff. So this Dunnite comes from the Twin Sisters area. I'll show you a map in a second, but it formed in the upper mantle about 5 to 10 miles in depth. I like to think of it as the mother of basalt. So this is stuff from the upper mantle that when something like a hot spot comes along and heats up the upper mantle, it partially melts it. And that melt can ascend to the surface, and that has the same chemistry as basalt. So when we think of like the Yellowstone hotspot coming through, or place in the upper mantle that's getting a lot of heat and partially melting to send basalt up, that leftover material is this Dunnite. And it's special when we can get that that material to get to the surface without altering to serpentine or serpentinite. And this is Twin Sisters is a pretty special place in the world because we've got this large mass of unaltered Dunnite that has made it to the surface. I think only edges of it are altered to serpentinite. That's the type of stuff you see in the California Coast Range quite a bit. And that stuff, that's more normal of what you expect from ultramafics that go down into a subduction zone and get popped back up through the magic of plate tectonics. But this is a cool, I feel like it's very Northwest, very Washington centric. Yeah, so it's special that way. So where do we end up finding it? This is Bellingham over here. You've got Mount Baker over on the right, and then Twin Sisters is this mountain range here, just southwest of Mount Baker. There's a Dunnite quarry or olivine quarry on the flanks, on the north flanks of it, and then if any of you are familiar with coming out of Acme, you go up Mosquito River or Mosquito Lake Road, go down through this hummocky terrain that ends up being a glacial kind of stagnant ice deposits. There's a bunch of peat bogs in there, and that's kind of cool. I wonder if that's why they call it Mosquito Lake. But you get down to the bridge there, and you can walk down to the middle fork of the Nooksack, and in this moraine material, in this kind of alpine ice sheet material, it's just chocked full of Dunnite from the Twin Sisters. It's pretty cool. There's a couple other places out here where these alpine kind of tills and diamix end up out there just full of Dunnite, and it's pretty cool. So this is a rendition Dan Coe, one of our cartographers, did of looking across the Twin Sisters towards Mount Baker, and it's kind of a three-dimensional rendition of photos, but it shows this beautiful mountain range, and I guess there's the mine off to the north, and then the river valley down here is, you know, where we just saw in the photo or the map, where we end up seeing some of this stuff closer to town. So this is what it looks like there, the bridge that goes over the middle fork of the Nooksack. And you can see there's just all this dunite, all these kind of browns and greens. But then there's also a lot of volcanic rocks, a lot of andesites in the river. And it's kind of weird. I don't think we really fully understood why we're only finding dunite there. And you look in the rest of the riverbed, and it's volcanic rocks from Baker, but it looks to be that moraine material is being exposed in just kind of in that area. Otherwise, the bed load of the Nooksack there is all volcanic rock. It's kind of cool. Northwest Stone Sculptors Association, oftentimes Pat will get us into the mine. And so there's usually an auction item at our fundraisers, a trip to go to the olivine mine and on the north side of the Twin Sisters there, and collect some that you can then take home and sculpt. So these are other sculptors in front of me with their trailers, and we're going up to get some stone. This is the quarry itself. A lot of it is, it's basically crushed up and sent off for foundry work, and to be used basically because it can deal with high temperature environments like in kilns and foundries. It doesn't break down like quartz sand would. But it's funny, went up there with the sculptors, and I ended up coming back with a big bucket of the crushed up stuff, because that's stuff we can give out to kids for samples of Twin Sisters Dunnite. I didn't actually bring home very much stone from that trip, but Pat Barton brought out some of his awesome mushroom pate. So he usually brings us food and auctions off this for the group. It's a really great time. And to be able to get up there and see this unaltered Dunnite in place is great. This is one of the first pieces I made out of Twin Sisters Dunnite. It's got the rind on there. I think it's actually quite large. I think it's about 15 inches across and maybe more than 20 or 23 in length. And it's just a beautiful stone to work. I didn't take this to a high polish because it's going to be an outside piece, kind of like a little bird bath thing for some friends, parents of mine. And then I guess I'm moving on to basalt at this point. This is not mine. This is Tom Small's, and this is a basalt column. You can see the outside weathering rind. And then he's made this cool kind of little water dish that has some places where water can spill out. But his work just blows me away, and the shapes that he's able to make, and the edges, kind of the technique, along with just the aesthetics of it, it's just mind-blowing. But this is a quite large column. It must be probably at least 24 inches across. In the Columbia River basalts, this is, I think, the Palouse River, but Nick Zintner, what calls us this stuff, the German chocolate cake of eastern Washington. So Basalt Flow after Basalt Flow erupted from fissures in eastern Oregon and Washington during the Miocene. That's 17 million to 6 million years ago, but most of it kind of centering around about 15 million years ago. And went all the way down the Columbia, the old ancestral Columbia, to the coast, making some of those haystack rocks offshore. It went into the Willamette Valley, where I'm from, and a bunch of the basalt around there was actually Columbia River basalt. It's kind of mind-blowing. We think it's likely related to the Yellowstone hotspot coming ashore. You probably all have learned all about that with some of your members and some of the great speakers that have come through Quimper. So again, I think of basalt as being the partial melt from the upper mantle that makes it to the surface. Basically, if you can heat up the upper mantle with a hot spot, you can then drive off this basalt and get that to the surface. This is kind of a map view of where the basalt issued out of, and the kind of the aerial extent. A lot of what the sculptors are carving is coming from kind of the Moses Lake area. There's a quarry out there that brings it into Preston to Marinakos, a stone yard there, kind of by Issaquah, Preston area. And it's kind of easy for us to get our hands on that stone in that way. It would be nice if we found some places a little closer to where I live, but we'll work on that. And Marley Miller's photo, I think this is down by Bend actually, but those beautiful columns that are formed in these basalt flows, as the lava flows cool, you get these columnar joints occurring. And it's kind of, I think of them as like mud cracks, you know, when you've got a mud puddle and it dries in the sun, desiccates, kind of pulls apart in these weird kind of triple junction patterns with the tensional forces pulling these all apart. And so you get a lot of these triple junctures, but you get the same thing happening in mud cracks or it's a good analogy, I guess, for basalt cooling, shrinking, and pulling apart to make these beautiful columns. This is a piece that I made, and being a geologist, mostly I'm a little focused on earth landforms, geomorphology. So this is kind of a glacial circa is what I had in mind as I made this. So it's kind of a little dished out bowl with kind of this terraced sort of hillside coming down. When I was making this, I was mapping landslides around Mount Rainier, and so I kind of had that in the back of my mind as I was making it. This one was, in this picture, it's unfinished, but ends up, it's outside my house. My dripping gutters drip drops into it, and so that's what I use it for now. It's pretty sweet. Another piece of basalt that I carved was this a couple years ago at camp. I think it was a drumlin, and it's a basalt column that I just kind of planed off the top and put this little drumlinoid into it. So kind of a glacial landform. Kind of getting into the process of sculpting some of these basalt columns. This is a big bench that I've been working on for years. And it's my large grinder there, but basically, you know, I'll cut into the basalt with a diamond blade, make a bunch of, we call them fret cuts. So kind of vertical cuts. These are probably an inch or so apart. And then I come in with a kind of one of my beefier chisels, and we'll put it in there up against the stone and break those frets off. And so that's with the broken off frets. Then I'll polish it and grind it down to where I don't know, it's probably 100 grit at this point, but I'm trying to put like a little tsunami wave in. It doesn't show up very well in this photo, but little tsunami starting off of this subduction zone where you've got one plate going into the other. Eventually, I'm hoping to have a Yahoo, a serpent spirit over in this side, but we'll see. That's still sitting in my driveway. I guess I'm segueing here to Tom Small. He's kind of one of my favorite sculptors. I love his work. He's just a sweet man who is willing to share a lot of the wonders of the earth and stone sculpting, and it's one of my heroes out there. This was at his place. He was working on this large erratic that I'll show you pictures of later. I think it's downtown Friday Harbor nowadays, but we had a little get together out there to commune over stone a few years ago. Oh, and I think that's Therese there. She's from Whidbey Island too. She's got a cool sculpture park out that way. And this is Tom and Syra and some of our other members at a gallery opening downtown Seattle. And this is one of Tom's pieces. It's this large piece of basalt that he's textured in this way to have these just beautiful arcs and just fabulous sculpture. I think at the same time he was putting out this book, Stories in Stone and Light. It's out in the second press of it. It's a wonderful book for getting inspired about his work and nature and stone and pretty cool stuff. I'll encourage you all to check out his website. I wanted to show you some of his videos, but because he shows you the kind of the process, there's one video in there where he picks up the stone, takes it into his yard and starts working on it, and be able to see all that is awesome. I didn't feel like I could do that in this talk, but you should all check out his website. I've got it at the end for you. This is one of his pieces in basalt out in Friday Harbor at I think what was it, Waterworks Gallery. And it's just a fabulous piece of basalt. I don't know how he how he looks at the rind on the basalt column and integrates that into his design. But this looks like an artifact, like a conchoidal fractures on an arrowhead, and yet he's done it in basalt and textured it and shaped it and polished it in such a way that just blows me away. His work's amazing. And what's cool is at these symposiums, like Tom will be one of the guest artists who is a field mentor. So like when I was working on the piece a while ago, which was the little glacial cirque on Mount Rainier, when I was having a hard time getting the lines just right, who shows up but Tom? He's like, hey, can I help you? And I'm like, yes, Tom, I'm struggling with this little angle. And so then he shares with me how he makes these little these little angles in here and loans me the tool to do it and gets me going. And that's this kind of this community and this sharing of techniques and passion for stone is just wonderful. Tom's a part of that. So this is another one of his pieces. So this is a glacial erratic that he's carved into this beautiful bench that you can check out when you check out Friday Harbor. Very cool piece. I've got a few pictures of it from different angles. But being able to take a big glacial erratic and make a beautiful bench out of it, that's something that this public can interact with and hang out with, just I find really amazing. So I think this one has come down from Canada. I think of you all as the glacial erratic freaks when it comes to people in the Puget Lowland. You guys are really into your erratic, so you can probably tell me where this piece came from in Canada. But yeah, you guys, your glacial erratics, pretty cool. So getting into glacial erratics during the Ice Age, approximately 15,000 years ago, the continental ice sheet came down from BC and brought with it a bunch of the rocks they didn't want anymore. And they left them behind when the ice sheet retreated. A lot of these things are brought from elsewhere, basically. And this is an image that Dan Coe, I think I forget who he borrowed some of the original artwork from and stippled it, but it's building on previous mapping, and he does great work. I'm glad we've got him at the survey. But when I think of that ice sheet that came down, I think of this picture. Years ago, I was mapping landslides from a plane after probably a 2009 rain on snow event. And as we were coming back, and the Puget Lowland was filled with clouds. And I think this is a great analogy for it. I'm looking west over towards the Olympics, this kind of the south end of the Olympics. But when the valley was, when the lowland was filled with clouds, and you can see these drumlins sticking up out of the clouds, it's just, this is what I think of 15,000 years ago in the Puget Lowland when the ice sheet was here. I think it probably looked like this. Maybe it was a little bit higher than this, but this is how I imagine it. And then another one of Dan's maps. This is down along Hood Canal, the Great Arm, but you can see how the glaciers really kind of streamlined the landforms and kind of scoured it in such a way that it's made the area look this way, and then it dropped off a bunch of stones from Canada. And I like to sometimes take those stones and make just pretty little bowls out of them that bees can drink out of, or my mom's dog can drink out of, and that's kind of fun. These are quick and easy little gifts you can make when you get invited to go someplace and you're like, oh my God, I need to take them a gift. And well, you got one in hand. This one though, this one is that twin sisters Dunnite. I think my mom's dog drinks out of that one, but it's great to be able to pick up a stone in your backyard and make something that's durable out of it, and something that's kind of pretty and a nice little gift. When I think of stone freaks and people sculpting erratics, I think of Sue Taves. I don't know if any of you have been out to her studio in Freeland, the Freeland Art Studios. I think of Sue as having like a real stone addiction. Seems like she'll carve whatever she finds, whether it's an erratic or whatever stone she can get her hands on. I think by training, she's a physical therapist, and just a really nice person that makes beautiful art out of both erratics and whatever stone she gets her hands on. It's pretty amazing. But being on the island, and why I'm kind of bringing up Sue, beyond that she's just an incredible person, but she does some of this work that has really nice lines that really are waves, and to me they reflect water when I see her work. And this is one of her erratics. You can see that it's kind of got a beat up weathered rind on the outside of it, but then she's put these lines in it that really just scream water to me, and when I go over to Whidbey Island, I have to take a ferry or something, and then I just feel like what she does, where she does it is just perfect. And she's a pleasure to visit with too. And she's got, this is a piece of basalt that she's taken it. So it's a column kind of looking, or column that's put on its side. And again, she's put these kind of wave forms in it in a way that just look like water to me. And it's neat to be able to see stone in a kind of fluid way in that sort of place. It's just mesmerizing to me. So. And then getting into jade and thinking about how the ultramafic rocks, the Dunnites, can become jade and then become sculpture. I think of Deborah Wilson. She's a BC sculptor that's been a part of the association for a very long time, and has usually been there with teaching people how to sculpt jade, whether it's locally sourced jade or stuff from BC. She's just been a real important figure in our local jade carving group. Currently, Julian Chen has been helping out with the jade tent years that Deborah isn't there, and has been inspiring people and showing them how to carve jade. And this is Julian. She's one of the board members with NWSSA, and this is sort of cool octopus piece that she had on the website, and it's pretty cool. But so we'll have guest artists, like I mentioned. So we had Dale Blankenship a couple of years ago, and we set up all these tents and all this equipment that people can come and learn to carve jade at. So if you didn't want to carve a huge basalt column right away, but you thought a gateway rock might be jade, Julianne and Dale can kind of help get you started and show you techniques and the tricks of the trade to make your own beautiful jade things. They're jade freaks, all three of those people. But kind of the formation of jade and how it came to be on the West Coast goes back to that kind of big tectonic picture I was showing before, that big map that shows these different groups of rock that have been accreted or shoved on the continent. And the formation of jade ends up being where you get ultramafics like Dunnite, peridotite, and you put it into a subduction zone where it can go under high pressures but low temperatures. And then you need to bring it back up to the surface. And the way that you can do that is by abduction or pushing one of these subduction zones onto the continent. So we see things, these ophiolites in California and Oregon, where that where this has happened, where the subduction zone then pushes the stuff up onto shore. Let's see, so high pressure, low temperature, and you end up going through this process called metasomatism. Metasomatism. I'm having a hard time saying it today, but basically where you take this ultramafic rock, you put it under high pressure, you mix it with these fluids that are like high in silica and alumina, and you alter it into this very durable stone. So if you want to find Jade in Washington, you can actually, Al's on the call today. You can go out with Al Wald to the Pilchuck or Deer Creek, which is creeks that are draining out of the Bell Pass Melange. It was probably the same kind of tectonic package of the ocean floor stuff that got shoved onto the continent, or that subduction zone that got shoved onto the continent, that probably brought the Twin Sisters Dunnite in and docked it onto the continent at the same time. But you can also buy Jade from Washington Jade. There's a commercial fella, I think they're in Snohomish County, but they've got a website you can check out. They have some mines in the area that they're able to pull this nephrite out of. And then there's a really cool exhibit at Western Washington University that I feel like is really worthwhile to go to. And actually, I think I've got an image of it next. So this is that display from Western Washington University. What's Jade, what's not Jade? Because you get out there and you find all these hard stones in Pilchuck or Deer Creek, and you're like, it's green, it's hard, you know. And this display is really helpful for that, as well as Dale and people at the stone carving camp can kind of help you do the specific gravity measurements and show you some easy techniques for determining if you've got a piece of jade. So this was the first piece of jade I ever found. I've sliced it up into a few different pieces now, but it was just one little cobble. It doesn't look like much because I haven't polished it yet. But what's cool is, well, beyond it being really durable and a very cool stone that we know went down the subduction zone at one point, is that light comes through it really easily. And so, you know, these pieces will be kind of fun to make something out of at some point. Yeah, you can find it or you can buy it, but it's a great kind of Pacific Northwest stone that people have been using throughout the ages for its hardness and durability. And actually, maybe Al and I will go collect some here in the next month or so. In British Columbia, so I mentioned that Deborah Wilson's from up there. When she does some of her larger commission pieces, she does a lot of kind of large commissions. She'll sometimes source the stone from BC, from these different mines along the western side of BC, and these are kind of accreted terrains. But I think a lot of what they have up there is nephrite. So maybe if I go back on a few slides, you start out with nephrite at one level in the subduction zone, and you put it under more and more pressure, and then you can get to jadeite. But they're both pretty similar. I think jadeite's slightly harder, but they're both pretty cool, durable forms of jade. So then this is a piece that Deborah recently finished. She gave a great presentation to the association during our virtual symposiums. But this thing is, I think, 30 inches by 24 inches by 16 inches. And it's BC jade or nephrite from the Provincial Valley up there. And it's, I think it's at a commercial building site in Victoria on a piece of basalt. I think this is Washington basalt that she's made a nice pedestal for, but just a beautiful, amazing piece of jade. And it's, you know, she went through the process and told us how she did it along the way, and it's just really inspiring that she makes some amazing things. So I've got her website here, and you can check it out at some point. And I guess I'd like to say that you know, I feel like the whole world is suffering with the pandemic going on, and I know that my stone sculpting community has suffered also. A lot of their income from their gallery shows and people buying commissions from them have kind of gone away. And I've seen some of my professional artists take day jobs to make ends meet. And I don't know, it's kind of tough to see. But anyway, I guess what I'm getting at is hopefully you can you can support the arts and support Northwest Stone Sculpting. You know, in normal years, we'd be having symposiums. This last year, we just had to go virtual, but we're hoping to start having them again, potentially this summer. I think they're going to be pretty small, just due to the amount of people and social distancing that we'll have to ensure. But there, you know, typically we'd have 3 symposiums. There's one that's a women's carving workshop in Port Hadlock, usually in June. I don't know that they'll be having it this year, but I feel like that's in your backyard. And if any of you are kind of called to stone, that might be a nice gateway introduction to the association. But then also, you know, if you want to learn to sculpt, or you want to come and just, you know, I think a lot of us are being geologists are really into, or being into earth science and stones. We're curious about stones. We appreciate them and like looking at them, and some of us like polishing them. But if you want to kind of learn more about it, we end up having shows a lot of times in association with these symposiums where you can buy sculpture, you can look at the sculpture, you can talk to people, you can ask for commissions and things. And those are really great events. Hopefully we'll start having those again. But we also have fairly inexpensive membership. I think it's $50 a year, and it comes with a quarterly newsletter or journal. It's called Sculpture Northwest. There's lots of great resources in here, and they go through and you know, do write-ups on various local sculptors and the stone they sculpt, and it's a great resource. And so that's whether you're interested in coming to the workshops and symposiums or not. I feel like that's a cool benefit of being a member. And that's a great way that you can support the arts in this group of sculptors that come together with the Working Northwest Stone. Kind of one last thing, when I think of the environmental impact of art, I really like the idea, and I'm kind of charmed with being able to pick up stones in your backyard that maybe a glacier brought here. And you know, it's not something that it's not a mountaintop being mined in one country, shipped to another country, and smelted, turned to metal, and brought to my country so I can fire it up and make something out of it. This is stone that I can get in my backyard. And I love it that the Northwest Stone Sculptors are sculpting this work, and are sculpting the stone that it's here. I feel like it's got a very low environmental impact, and that you know, yeah, we're grinding on it and beating on it with hammers and chisels and diamonds, but it's sourced here, and it's really neat, and really get a kick out of that. So when it comes to art, try to buy local. I'll get off my soapbox here, but here's my personal email address, trevcon98@yahoo. If you have questions down the road, shoot me an email. I do work for the Washington Geological Survey, but I typically do sculpture and art stuff on the side. So this is a good way to contact me if you have stone sculpting questions. If you've got landslide questions, email me at work, I suppose, or either way. And then for further information, we've got our Northwest Stone Sculptors Association website here. And those videos that Tom Small has, you've got to check those out. You'll want to be a stone sculptor then. You'll be awed and inspired by kind of the work he does, and the way he's able to share it. And then Sue Tave's website there on Whidbey Island, and Pat Barton. You know, he does, if you're into Dunnite and ultramafics, check out his website. He'll set you up. And then Deborah Wilson with all that Jade out of BC. Her website's here too. So, all right. And maybe Carol will set me up with questions, and we'll see where we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. If everybody wants to go ahead and turn on their videos and give a round of applause to Trevor. What a great talk. Thank you very much for showing us the light of stones. And if you wouldn't mind putting back the slide that has, oh, hi, Jim. Lots of people here I haven't seen in so long.
Right, this is so cool.
Sorry, a lot of things. Hi, Ralph. So one of the things that I would like to do is have you put that the one with the Franciscan formation, the subduction. I guess it's in Northern California. That image. Yeah, I don't see a lot of questions in the talk. I mean, in the chat. I think I had requested that there be at least one put in because I wanted Rebekah to show me how that Google Docs works. And so I'll start with that question. What is your favorite? I guess we could say even an erratic would be from what could be from Washington. What is your favorite stone to carve and why?
Oh, I think, well, shoot, I was going to say it's pretty easy, but I vacillate between basalt and dunite. I feel like that relationship, the mother of basalt being dunite, it carves so easily and well, I don't know about easily, but I like how the diamonds feel when you cut into it. It's just, it's a really beautiful. It's a fun stone to carve. I love its geologic history and the kind of the rarity of it. You don't have olivine popping out of the Earth's surface very often. It's not typically a stable way to get it up here, and so it's pretty special. So twin sisters feel like it's my favorite, and then being a Northwest native, those basalt columns, and I'm always drawn to those. I love how that material works too, but
and you actually sell those, so somebody could actually call you. You don't. I know some carvers that I know only they don't do anything for sale, and that sometimes is disappointing.
Oh no, I don't. I've never sold anything, but a lot of the sculptors do. That's their bread and butter, and so there's plenty. Yeah, there's plenty of people who can help you in that department. And I'm surprised. I mean, I don't know. I'm a geologist for my day job, and I'm surprised that people don't charge more for their art. I mean, it is hard to buy expensive art sometimes, but when you think of how much time, I mean, I know how much time it takes to make some of the stuff, and I feel like people can get a pretty good bargain with how much work it takes to make these things. So
great, thanks. So we have a few other questions. At the entrance to Paulsbo's Fish Park there is a large fish carved into an 8-foot high rock. I'm sorry, I didn't. Of unknown material. Do you know what type of stone this is? And if you haven't been to Paulsbo, I welcome you when you come up to Port Townsend. It's an easy stop in.
Swing through there. I'm not familiar with that one. I mapped up in the Pulse Bowl area, so oops. I should have. But I guess I was working there.
Okay.
Does anybody else know? An 8-foot tall rock sounds like it's probably going to be. Is it a column? I know in like Port Angeles, I've seen some of the columns that have fish carved into them, and I think that's a fella over by Monroe. But any other clues on this 8-foot rock?
Well, we'll wait to have I can open the chat back up, but I think maybe Rebekah will put it into the list if the answer comes back up, or your a better description of it, like if it's a piece of granite, or I mean, is it speckled? Is it wavy? Is it does it have pink in it? I guess those are the questions I would want to know too. But so the next question we have is, where on the Olympic Peninsula can one go to get stone?
In your
And
backyard.
okay,
Do
so
you
what
have
if you want
erratics?
something bigger? If you need something bigger for your backyard and you need to go to a quarry like Penny Creek, or, I mean, do you have other ones that you would recommend? I know basalt, but you want competent basalt, not some of that crappy crescent sometimes you find, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I'd have a hard time trying to carve crescent just because I would think it'd have enough fractures in it that'd be troublesome. But yeah, anywhere that you would have kind of a glacial, like if there are any cames out there, I'm having a hard time thinking of where you would have kind of recessional channels or cames up against the Olympics where you'd have piles of boulders. But I know that well, there's a place kind of over by Port Orchard or between Belfair and Port Orchard that is one of these landscaping places where when people find big rocks at a construction site, they don't want them around anymore or whatever. So they'll truck them over there and dump them off and you can buy them for landscaping stone. But usually these landscaping stones are big rocks that nobody else wants and
Hard to
just needs
move.
them. Yeah, just needs them out of the way. But so I would think if you guys have any local quarries that would have rocks that they don't want to break up, maybe they just want the aggregate. Actually, Carol, you being used to be a surface mine inspector in your past life, you probably know which quarries to they've got cobbles laying over on the side.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you always want to check in at the scale shack, whatever you do. If you find a quarry, make sure you check in at the scale shack. Don't just go driving in there. Just let me tell you, safety is first. And MSHA would actually skin those people alive if they had the public just driving in. So you want to be very cautious about that.
Yeah, I would think landscaping supply places maybe would be an easier way to go. Or I don't know how often you have your car next to a beach with a big boulder that you need to take home, but I imagine there's ways of doing that too.
Yeah, some people get mad at you. I know one time Jeff and I stopped along Highway 97 and we were with students and we were going to do some gold panning, but it was in a stretch where somebody else had a right on it. And
Oh
let
no!
me tell you how fast another truck showed up to ask us what the heck we were doing.
Oh no!
So you do need to be cautious.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question we have is where to find olivine. I know you mentioned the Dunnite quarry on Twin Sisters, Corky. What is the name of Corky's quarry or his company?
I think he's the Olivine Corporation, and I think he sells to. There's another one of these landscaping stone yards north of Bellingham. I want to say it's like North Star or something like that. But a lot of times these landscaping supply places get rock that people just are using for roads and landscaping, and they've got great geological stories. I think earlier today I was talking about the Kindle Quarry. It has these great limestones that have crinoids in them, and you can pick them up for pennies a pound at these landscaping places, and then make very cool sculpture out of them. That it's almost a marble.
Very nice.
But yeah, so I'd say scour the local landscaping places to get Dunnite specifically. Yeah, Corky sells to that North Star, but you can also look in the rivers around. Where are we?
Nooksack?
Around the Nooksack. Acme is the name of the town nearby. But are you able to see my screen still?
Oops.
Oh no. Okay.
No.
I hope have I been showing my screen the whole time?
No, I think we've all been looking at each other. Hello, Pat.
Okay.
There we go. Now you are. There you go.
So the town of Acme is here. There's plenty of alpine ice. I don't know why it would be north of the Twin Sisters and west of the Twin Sisters, but there's these morainal materials out here that are just chock full of Dunnite. So I know that there was a quarry there that a fellow let us dig in, but it had been sitting around for 10,000 or more years and was a little oxidized. But a lot of times in the rivers, just over in this moraine area, and then I think I've even seen some pretty sweet Dunnite down by that hatchery. But kind of, in this general area, I would say the rivers in there should have plenty of Dunnite. You're not supposed to collect anything for sale in the the wetted part of the river, but I think a small amount of stone from the banks typically isn't frowned on too much.
Great, thank you. Another question, other than erratics, what could you work from the Olympic Peninsula? I would assume, yeah.
I don't know, because it seems like a lot of the stuff's fractured that's come up along the in the Olympics themselves.
What's the black rock that's old mudstone? Sorry, I'm thinking of the core rocks, something more softer.
Yeah, if you had some larger chunks of sandstone, those could work. Trying to think.
Does anybody carve any of the gray wacky?
I haven't seen anybody really carve that. I know, locally down here in Olympia, we've got the Tenino sandstone. Well, and actually, you all probably have chunks of old building stone up there in Port Townsend that either came from the Chuckanut or Tenino. I see a lot of the facade and the buildings around town are like that. But I would think you'd probably have
argillite, yes. Argillite, that's it. Yep, that's it. Good. Okay.
Brought in some of that stuff, and that stuff should work fairly easily. You get into some of the core rocks. I haven't seen it worked, but it should be a nice competent rock. I would think it'd hold up well if you can find larger chunks. Otherwise, some of the smaller cobbles, you'd be surprised how much joy you can get out of a small cobble if you shape it all up right.
As long as you can find it where it's not part of a shear zone, maybe you could, it won't fracture all over the place. Yeah, it dries out and desiccates. Just, yeah.
I'll think about that and try to think where you could get quarry stone out on the Olympic Peninsula. Or you all probably know too if you got any cool sandstone out in the Quimper area.
Okay, we have another question. Let's see. Does the Pacific Northwest have any sculpture quality marble or limestone?
Marble or limestone? We have an old book or an old publication of the geological surveys. It's like Building Stone of Washington. And in it, they have a bunch of places that people have historically mined. I think in the past, there are places over in Northeast Washington where people did get colored marbles and things. But I'm trying to think. It doesn't come to mind right now where there'd be an active marble quarry.
Okay. Thank you.
I probably need to eat something
then.
Oh,
let's see. Straight. Okay, so it looks like there's a question that was from Ralph Dawes, and Pat Pringle is suggesting, Ralph, you might want to check out Ted Danner's Limestones of Washington. Yeah, there you go, the DNR.
Great. Thanks, Pat.
Where does one buy stone tools and diamond blades? That's a really good question.
Yeah, so there's a place out on the East Coast called Trow and Holden. I don't like so much mail ordering because I like to feel my chisel and see it. It's hard for me to visualize what it is in catalog. But they have a local, what do you call it, representative out. What is it at Preston? There's Marinacco Stone Yard, and that's where a lot of us get our larger columns, and they also have the ability to cut them, and they've got some large saws. They're like 6 foot or so, but they sell Trow and Holden chisels and hammers. Well, that'd probably be one of the closest sources there. They also have some of these grinding wheels and.
Where did you say it was located?
It's in Preston, Washington, out by Issaquah.
Thank you.
But and then you also bring a trailer because
you might find a rock you want.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so that's a good resource there. And strangely enough, in South Seattle, there's a lot of these tile and marble companies that do like flooring and countertops and things, and they sell a lot of the tools that we end up using. So like I think that this Makita may have come from one of those places. So it's and they'll sell all sorts of diamond blades of varying qualities. And I think that's where I got some of my first polishing pads. And it's funny, as marble and tile, or marble becomes, and granites, I guess, become easily accessible in the West for countertops and things. People end up needing to buff out the scratches in them or whatever, and so you can actually buy these there to clean up your countertops and
Huh.
reshape them. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, there's a big kind of that industrial area in South Seattle. There's one place called Master Wholesale that's fairly inexpensive, but or you can mail order things from the East Coast too. But
So somebody suggested, Beth in the audience suggested stonesculptorsupplies.com or tosculpt.com are websites. But if you're like me and want to try something new, you might want to pick it up and hold it. I know I've had some issues with carpal tunnel, so I may want to make sure that it's not too heavy. I know sometimes those chainsaws are a little bit heavy.
well, and if you if you want to get started this year, I'm not sure how many people will be able to come to our symposium, but usually the symposiums have reps from, I think this Stone Sculptor Supplies or one of those places send somebody up with a bunch of equipment and hammers. And it's nice to be able to, it's hard to tell, well, how is that 2-pound hammer online? What's that really feel like? Whereas there you can feel it and you can try it out. We have, we call it the beginner's tent, but we've got this big tent where you can show up without any tools, without any stone, and plan on learning to stone sculpt that week. I think your first stone is free typically, like some sort of drug dealer.
Sounds intimidating, Trevor. I'm sorry.
No, but well, I mean, you've got food and supplies, and at the beginner's tent, we've got really nice people who will help you make your stone sculpting dreams come true. But we also have a big tool library that belongs to the association, and it's this huge tent full of tools that, like when I wanted to go hammer shopping, it was nice to be able to try out 5 different hammers, find the one that feels just right, and then order that one, because but there's nowhere else are you going to be able to really, even if you go to if you're out on the East Coast and you go to a large stone working manufacturer of tools, you wouldn't be able to try all the stuff from Italy and Vermont and be able to try them all. And so here we've got all the stuff that you can find the right tool that works for you. We also usually have, there's a guy out of BC, out of Vancouver, who usually sends down pallets of stone that he acquires in different places in BC and Washington and sells. Actually, he would know where to get some of this stone, but he's a little bit more secretive, but he'll sell it to you. It's locally sourced, but I don't know that he'll necessarily tell you where it's from, but or tell you where he got it exactly. But you can get local stone that way. But then he also imports a lot of cool carbide and diamond equipment at very reasonable prices. And I don't know, his name's Randy Zieber. He's with Neolithic Stone.
Actually, thank you, Trevor, because we have another participant said that to sculpt is wonderful and that the owner will give advice. And then Neolithic Stone is in BC, really great resource. I'm assuming that's a quarry, or maybe it's a landscaping company.
It's a guy who's got a basement in Vancouver that's full of stone and stone sculpting equipment. I think his day job lately has been keeping him more focused on that stuff, but not in stone as much. But hopefully he'll be sending us more stone, and he has a website still, and some of the stuff he's got's great. Thank you all. Thank you for helping me with the answers.
There's a couple more. I'm a person who does the stone carving dojo tent with the mentor Tamara Buchanan, and a local stone carver from Lopez Island. It is a great resource. And then there's one other question. What kind of stone are local erratics? Maybe you want to talk about that, or you want to?
I see Kim's here. That's cool. Hi, Kim. Yeah, so Kim was talking about Tamara, which she's been with the association since the beginning, and she's just like the nicest, most patient, kind of Buddhist style lady who will teach you to sculpt, and is just she's a wonderful mentor to everybody who comes through that beginner's tent. It's not a yeah, it's not a scary place to be at all. It's a very comfortable place to learn to sculpt, and Tamara has been a great resource. And Kim too, she's
Thank you.
helping out along the way. So very cool. And Beth, hi, hey, cool. Sorry, I got sidetracked with
So Beth
seeing
wants to know
sculptures
about
here.
the local erratics and
Local
what kind of
erratics.
stone they are. Mhm.
But I was up in PA not too long ago, and it looked like you had a lot of different stones on the beaches there. But yeah, I would think anything that got scraped off of Canada, pushed down to where you're all at, or maybe even out of the North Cascades, hitchhike on a alpine glacier down out of the North Cascades, and then get pushed down by the Continental Glacier to Port Townsend. But I wouldn't expect you to be getting much from the south part of the Puget Sound upward. I would think mostly what you should be seeing is stuff that was shoved down out of there. And it seems like you guys have all kinds of cool stuff. Really great, beautiful cobbles of all ilks. Whether I've even seen some weird peridotite and ultramafics that have probably gotten scraped off of, I don't know, Fidalgo Island or the San Juans or someplace. I don't know, but we've all got. Imagine your local geological community can probably tell you what stones you have on your beaches better than I. So sorry.
Yeah, we had a little competition recently.
Yeah.
So we have another question. What is the process that you use to carve out the bowls?
Cool. So I used to try to take my angle grinder and carve frets into it like that, and then break them out with a chisel. So you make the slices, then you pop them out, and then I go in with a grinding wheel and grind on the inside of that, and then I'll take these polishing pads at different grits. So probably a 50 grit. This one's kind of bowed out a little bit because I'll put it on a smaller one that's rubbery, so it can get in the nooks and crannies, and I can shape it around the edges that way. But so for kind of whatever size bowl I'd be making that way, I'd probably go that route. If I just want a cute little circular hole, my buddy Kentaro showed me this. I'll slice it up like a pizza and do about 8 slices, or I guess it'd be like 4 cuts into it that way, and then break those out. And then I've got a lot of times I'll zip it along the edge to make the lip, and I'll just kind of break all of that out and then go in and grind it. But then I've got a nice symmetrical circle from going into it that way. So that's one of the little tricks I learned.
Oh goodness, we have that's probably the last question that we can take because it's already almost 5:30, but we do have one last comment. It says stoners reunite.
Yes.
Come carve with NWSSA. Gratitude, Trevor.
Oh,
It was
you.
very, very, very wonderful talk. Thank you again. And
Thank
everyone have a great evening. Buonasera.
Take care.
Yes,
Hope to make
Thanks
dust
so
with you
much,
soon.
Trevor.
Thank you so much for your help. Wow, you guys are great.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks.
Thanks, Rebekah. Bye. Bye, Mike.